So a funny story. I last night I went to bed at around 2:30. I kind of let my temptations kind of get to me, and I woke up around 10:15 but completely missed breakfast. I told myself I wouldn't be in the mood to shoot this video, but honestly, I've delayed this for way too long, and I'm kind of behind on my schedule because I told myself I'd make about 2 or 3 videos a week. So I think it's about time we get this over with. My mood has been feeling kind of like a character by the name of Holden Caulfield from you may know him from The Catcher in the Rye. I read this novel back when I was in high school in 2016. I hear it's banned now from like the school curriculum, but I thought that gives me all the more reason to share this story so that those who don't have a chance to read it will get to know through this video. Um, Through the analysis, basically, I'm gonna analyze the character Holden, like his strengths, his weaknesses, some symbols in the book, and all sorts of that. I feel like Holden in general, he's a depressed kid who's like, who got off on the wrong foot. He often like talks about many things that depress him a lot. Things that to the average person would not seem like such a big deal at all. Like said, big suitcases, they just depress the hell out of me. Or like good luck. Good luck sounds terrible when you really think about it. Maybe that's true, but it's nowhere near as bad as break a leg. But it's probably because Holden had bad luck as a kid. He's like good luck facing off into the terrible things the future has to offer. Like because I think it's because as a kid, he had to deal with his brother Ali dying, and I know he was very close to him. And his mother, she's overworked, she's very distressed, she constantly worries about him and is very fragile. Um, yeah, and I think he tries to fill a void. Basically, he tries to use relationships and basically, he smokes a bunch of cigarettes. He talked about like I remember in one day he smoked almost 2 packs or practically 2 packs of cigarettes in one day. That is a lot. And like the keep in mind the book seems really long and it feels like an adventurous journey with 225 pages, but bear in mind the whole plot of the story only lasts for 3 days. And during those 3 days you can see numerous times how he like talks about wanting to kill himself. It's like, oh, I felt like a madman. I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to jump out that window. Like these are from his own words, essentially. And I basically see like Holden, he's gonna in a few years, like he's gonna wound up dead or in an asylum or something. And he's not doing straight. He gets in trouble so many times. He ended up spending one of the nights with a prostitute, even though he didn't he said he didn't like, plan on it and all that. Um a main Holden himself, however, like, I think he does have certain strengths, basically. Like I think two of them that I find off that I can think off the top of my head. The first one is he can admit that he's wrongdoing. He can admit to his wrongdoings. He basically, he knows that he admits that he didn't do well in Pensy and he didn't try his best, so that's why he flunked out of Pensy. And like and he admits that he's a madman. Like he's not like some people's like, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. The whole world is crazy. It's not me. But he admits that he himself is a madman and that he doesn't like to try hard in school. And secondly, I think he has a good heart and good intentions. Like you notice how he always talks well, the first thing is, Phoebe, like his sister Phoebe. He says she's really pretty, she's really innocent, and that's why he wanted to keep her innocence by saying that he did not want her to. he did not want her to come with him to this trip where he was going to be seeking isolation forever, because he wanted her to have a good life, and he didn't want anything bad happening to her. Like, and he wanted her to be in school and all that. Like, he has a good heart by nature, and he noticed that he's always sympathetic to those who get bad luck, you know. I think, like, when he was talking about the Bible, despite being an atheist and liking God, he said that his favorite disciple was somebody who his was somebody who I don't know, it was someone who suffered some bad luck or something. I don't know. And the second example was, you know, when he was talking about how his favorite English teacher being Mr. Antolini, because a student, James, committed suicide, and Mr. Antolini was the only one who walked over there and brought over took off his jacket despite it being cold and wrapped it around that person's body. And like, yeah, and like, you know, Holden always, you know, feels sorry for you know, those people who he thinks have it bad. Like, there was this one time with in the club, I think it was a dance club or something, and he met three girls. Like, he said they were all pretty ugly and such. Oh, that's just by his opinion. And he became more sympathetic to them, and like, notice he didn't say anything bad about them at all, you know. And this greatly contrasts with how he sees other phonies or people who are more successful than him, you know. Like, I he did a face like this towards the great piano player, like, because he's like, oh, that guy, he's just a show off, he's just a phony, you know, like, he just wants to impress other people. Like, that guy who, like, you know, played the piano very well. And like, and I think, like, there's another characteristic. So, like, I think if it hasn't become obvious, we're talking about Holden's weaknesses right now. One of his weaknesses is probably, like, you know, I don't really consider this a weakness, but in the Bible, it's considered a sin to envy. But although Holden wouldn't know this because he himself said he was an atheist, like, I think he envies. You know, I think he tries to use the little resources he has to compare himself with, you know, those that are relatively considered top tier, you know. Like, he talked about these three people on the bus who were laughing for this no reason at all. I believe there was a reason they were laughing, it's just Holden didn't see it because he's depressed. And like, you know, there was this time where he really gloated about this woman seeming really bored of a man. I don't know if this is true, but I think that Holden was just intoxicated, or he was really depressed, and perhaps he doesn't know the whole story, but perhaps the man and woman, or the woman who was dissatisfied, maybe she just had a bad day at work, or maybe the husband did, or maybe the husband or boyfriend did something that just pissed her off just a little bit, like maybe got a small stain on her dress or something. But then Holden was hoping that, okay, maybe that would cause their breakup, because that man, he's a phony, he doesn't deserve such a good looking woman or something like that. But it really could. And, you know, he made an extremity himself where he was like, I think, I forget the page number, but I remember it happened in the part 3 of the book, where he was washing his face, and like, and then he's like, I dripped like a bastard. I think he imagined himself, like, you know, so we would take pity on him, or like, you know, he had a sort of adventure basically to make his life a little interesting. Yeah. um so yeah, Holden, the problem is, you know, he doesn't try hard. He envies a lot, and I think he has a skewed sense of reality, essentially. But one of the things I like about The Catcher in the Rye is because, like, similar to Breaking Bad, I don't know if this applies to any of you guys, but I tend to always resonate with the main character. Like I'm gonna go off on a slight tangent, but I'm gonna be back to the main topic of the Catcher in the Rye, I promise. Like like Mr. White, we always assumed or saw his innocence or his reasons because we're watching this show from his perspective of the story. So the if we weren't watching it from his story and we were watching it from Hank's, we would yell, we would be yelling at Mr. White, and we would be really despising him for everything he's done, basically. Like if the Breaking Bad was told from Hank, his brother-in-law Hank's perspective, and not his perspective. But we saw the beginning, and we saw how depressed Mr. White was about how he was an underachieving high school teacher, barely making ends meet with his small house. Like, so I felt pity for him, and I didn't feel nowhere near as angry to him as I would have if I learned he was a drug addict and not from his perspective. Same here in The Catcher in the Rye, like I was really resonating with Holden because I actually like the story because believe me, I've been fighting depression for a really long time now. I've been struggling with game addiction for the past week, and a bit with porn and all those. And I sometimes feel things Holden's feeling, like how when you're depressed, like you don't think straight and all that. Considered going on I've considered hook hitting up dating apps and such, but thankfully by the grace of God I have not walked the wrong way. But like I think this book is a good indication that the main character, you shouldn't always follow his shoes and such. Like it really helped me exercise my judgment, the things he was saying. Yeah. The last thing to talk about is the symbol. Well, maybe I'll talk about symbols, but is his idea of innocence. I think Holden is in love with the past. Like Holden really he really is in love with the past, like because that's where his innocence lies. I think because his youthful times before, I think he was 16 when the book was published, but like it's 6 years later in 2022, but I'm gonna assume that he was still 16. Okay, hey, maybe I'm like Holden Caulfield and I like things that happened 6 years ago. Some of it's rubbed off on me, but anyways, what I'm trying to say is like because he really cherishes his past. He says all the good memories about my brother DB before he went off and became a prostitute. Oh, my brother Ali, we had such a good time. Phoebe, she was like roller skate skinny. You would like her. And I think he had a dog or something that died too. And so I think for that reason, like based on, it really shows how people's upbringings and their experience as a kid can really affect who they are for the rest of their lives. And like Holden just sees like, oh, the world, the adult world is just gonna be miserable. You're just gonna have to work, you're gonna deal with a bunch of phonies and such. So that's why he was so damn near happy when he saw um Phoebe, like, dancing around on the carousel at the end of the story. Cause like he's like, because he realizes she does have some innocence left in her. Although like it might quickly fade because Phoebe is getting old and such. So maybe in another year he will feel all sad again. And like, oh, also the ducks too, because like the ducks in the pond. Notice he always asks, where do the ducks go when it gets really cold? Like, I think if it were up to him, he would want the ducks to be forever where they are, basically, and nothing would change. Like the ducks, the carousel, they're all symbols towards his Holden's belief of innocence and youth. And I think his gray hair that he mentions is what the teenage world has done to him and has shattered a lot of his innocence, basically. Yeah. I remember I remember my teacher. So I think this is the last part of my discussion. I remember back in Wednesday, October 5th, 2016, around I think 1:35 p.m. Yes, I still remember the date. And for those of you who are accusing me of using a diary to record this, bear in mind I don't like writing my ideas down. So no, like he gave us anyways, he gave us an assignment like to say write 20 songs, no, write a letter to Holden Caulfield with 20 songs or messages or news articles you have that would help make him feel better. And I'm not going to list 20 because that will take too long, but I think one of them is the about God. You know, like Holden doesn't believe in God, but it's like believing in gravity. Like you might not believe in gravity, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, so I think I would send Holden some idea, like, you know, Bible verses with God, and, you know, telling him to follow God's footsteps, because me following God's footsteps has kind of, you know, made me a bit of a better person. 3 years ago, when my parents left the house and left me all to myself, you know, like I felt depressed as ever and like without any goals. They left again this week, but I feel like a much better person now. Despite having skipped breakfast today, but that was just my battle with Satan. I would have sent him Bible verses. I'd send him Coldplay and Owl City. These are two of my favorite artists, although Owl City hasn't released a song in many years. I would because they both like are encouraging songs that would lighten him up. What else would I send? Oh, yeah, you know what? One more thing, the last thing I would do is I would do something called graded exposure therapy. If you guys want to know more about graded exposure therapy, go on Google and search up Dr. Mike Dow and JJ Virgin. They help people um, who have disorders and addictive behaviors. Like they helped a guy who ate too many pizzas or too many burgers, you know, get through it. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but eventually that guy changed. Yeah. So like with Holden, like, you know, I'm like with great exposure therapy, you just take an existing behavior and you just add to it, basically. So, you know, like Holden, for example, likes his youth. He likes, you know, he likes his youth. So I'm gonna take his, like, you know, using graded exposure therapy. I can say, well, look at the past, you know, and apply that to history, because, you know, he flunked history according to Mr. Spencer. And then it's like, well, you can do this and become better at history, because history, it's even more useful because it's like it happened 2 centuries ago, not 10 years ago, you know, and that will get you better. Oh, and you love writing compositions. That's why you didn't fail English. Well, let's apply that to history. And, you know, and write in a composition, a storytelling like fashion about what happened during World War II, or I think it was the 1800s. Yeah. So yeah, overall, that's my analysis on the Catcher in the Rye. Great book. I recommend you check it out if your school curriculum doesn't have it. It really shows innocence and youth and such, but I think don't learn from him. He knows it himself too. The future is all you can really hold. You can avoid reality, but you guys can never avoid the consequences of facing reality. So that is all for today's video. I'd love to stay, but for now, I gotta jump. I'll see you guys on the other side of the bridge. Catch you next time.